Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Construction Canada's democast on elevated skin temperature screening solutions by FLIR Systems. My name is Nithya, and I'll be moderating today's presentation. Before I introduce the speaker, please note your mics are muted. It would be best if you turn on the speaker view. That said, if you have any questions for our speakers, feel free to post them in the Q&A forum. We will address as many questions as possible at the end of the presentation. If you have any connectivity or Zoom related questions, you can use the chat feature to communicate with us all, and we'll do our best to help you. Today's presentation is being recorded. It will be available on Construction Canada website, so you can access it whenever you need to. Now, I'd like to introduce our speaker. Manny Al-Sayed is the Eastern Canada District Sales Manager at FLIR Systems. In today's presentation, Manny will provide an overview of FLIR's thermal imaging solutions. With that, I'll turn things over to Manny.
Thank you, Natalia. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. Since we're going to have a little bit of time, I'm going to jump in right away to the presentation to talk about the FLIR solutions. First of all, FLIR's mission in everything we do and all that is to really save lives and livelihoods. That's a key statement that we go with every day in everything we do. FLIR is the largest manufacturer of infrared sensors in the world, with 60% of our business basically dedicated to that technology and about 40% into other applications as well. We mainly focus in the infrared bandwidth for solutions as in seen in the total darkness for first responders, industrial and building inspections, traffic control, and autonomous vehicles as well. This picture you see here is our service lab in FLIR Canada, located in Burlington, Ontario. FLIR Canada has been in Canada since 1965. We have over 40,000 units in service as we speak right now, and only being taken care of by 2 technicians. That is a statement to the quality of our product that is offered to the marketplace. We have a great infrared training center at that office as well, where we have trained over 7,000 professionals since 1995, since the inception of our ITC or infrared training center. You can find out more information about our courses that are offered as we do these days virtually on infraredtraining.com. Since the 2003 SARS outbreak, and actually in the 60s as well, FLIR has been involved in developing solutions for elevated skin temperature detection. In 2004, we received our FDA 510K FDA registration, and then throughout the years, we've increased our solutions to become better offers to the marketplace. We've done a lot of research papers and documentation in the last few years, most recently the IEC standard report 13154, where we describe the best techniques and methodology, and it is discovered that the best place to measure inner core temperature, as close as possible to the inner core temperature without using an actual thermometer from a distance, is in the inner canthus of the eye, or the corner of the eye. If you go to the links that you see here, which you'll get a copy of later on, and the FDA, ISO, CDC, and the SPIE report, they all stipulate that the best area to measure core temperature is the inner corner of the eye, or inner canthus, in a 1-to-1 single file line. The problem with the skin temperature, as you might see out in the marketplace being offered solution, is skin can have a lot of variations and errors. If you look at this picture, for example, we see the inner canthus, or the inner eye, measures at 34 degrees, where the actual forehead temperature is at 30 degrees. There's a 4-degree delta between these 2 areas. That is quite a difference when you're trying to detect for elevated body temperatures or skin temperature. Also, you see imagery where people are wearing masks and glasses and kind of walking right in front of the camera. That you will have a lot of errors. In this picture here, you see there's a 1.6 degree difference between the picture on the left to the picture on the right. So that is something we always recommend. Glasses must be removed and hats removed as well. So how do we get the best measurement for the solution? FLIR did research, and we found that we looked over 70 people coming back from the lunch hour into our laboratory in Sweden. Most of the average population is in the typical 34 to 35 degree inner core, inner canthus temperature. There's a small percentage that are in the lower part, where they're often cold naturally, and people that are warm like myself all the time. The problem is people that are in this range or in this range will either be always missed when they're being detected, or always going to be potentially seen as they might have fevers if they've been outside under the sun. So we discovered that the time of day, activity level, gender, ethnicity, age, stress all affect your inner core temperature. So the idea of having a set temperature is not exactly ideal, because you will have a lot of false positives or false negatives, meaning people who are truthfully, they'd have a fever but they're missed, or people who don't have fever but they thought to have something. which delays the process. We last introduced some new models of cameras. We've had a solution for a long time, but we offered some new models that are more dedicated to this application now. We're now on the handheld cameras that we offer. You can have an operator basic mode where you do your scanning, operator mode with a remote control, which I'll explain a little bit later, and the auto mode as well, which auto detects people as they walk through. These are options that you can add on to your cameras if you already have cameras from FLIR on hand, or if you would like to purchase models that come preloaded with these options. In the manual EST, so the basic idea of the mode that we use is we like to use an averaging method, which means we don't want to have a set temperature. We create a baseline to what is in front of the camera, and then we create an average by sampling a certain number of people. In this basic mode, you average up to 10 people, minimum 3. You create a baseline and then you create a deviation. Anybody above that deviation is considered potentially feverish, where you need to do secondary screening. In this mode now, the operator mode, which we introduced last week, that you can add onto your existing camera, you can have someone standing from a side and they can scan someone as they're walking in. The person places their eyes within the box that you see here, and they're checked to see if their temperature is normal and if everything is good. The next mode that we have is the auto mode, which is automatically does. You set it up, you let it go, the camera will do scanning by itself. Person goes in front of the camera scans, tells them where to move their eyes. Everything is good, it's fine. If there's a high temperature, it'll give you another message as well on the screen. All the handheld cameras can output to a standard television LCD that you can show to the people being scanned. We also have now dedicated models, as I mentioned, where these are models specifically set for the temperature range of 15 to 45 degrees Celsius. These are some of the price points. They come preloaded with all the different modes of scanning that you can use for detecting elevated skin temperatures. Also, we have fixed models. So the most common option that is seen right now in all of the applications worldwide is fixed cameras being used. And I'll get into that more right next few slides. So we call it in the one-to-one screening application, we recommend the handheld options, and the one-to-many screening, we recommend the fixed models. In the one-to-one, we're meaning that you have single file line, people being scanned, the operator is looking at the camera, or you can have the operator standing at a distance, depending on which configuration you can do. We calculate about 12 employees per minute per lane, 720 per hour, up to 3,000 if you use 4 lines of scanning. This is for the one-to-one. If anyone's detected, you send it to the next secondary stage screening as well. Typical setup for a one-to-one scanning with a handheld camera is a camera, tripod, optional TV, and then you just have people go get scanned. For the one-to-many is you would install multiple fixed cameras over single file lines, all routed to a single scanning station through the network. And then you can have messages pop up to say that the person is feverish and then send them to secondary medical screening. So the ability to, you don't need to have multiple operators. You can have one person operating from basically anywhere in the world scanning people as they walk through. This typical setup looks like it's a fixed camera, different resolutions. These cameras are on-VIF, so if you have an existing security system, they are compatible with your security system and it can be connected easily, or you can have them installed on a tripod, some type of wall or ceiling mount, and connected to a laptop as well. Design points to consider. What do you need to do? So if you remember that tear duct is best spot to measure, it's about 3 by 3 millimeters by ISO guidelines. Anything we choose for camera, this is something we can help you with choosing, is we got to make sure that the single pixel size is about 1.5 millimeters to whatever distance you choose to install the camera. We got to determine where you're going to be placing the camera because that'll help us figure out the lens. It takes about 200 milliseconds minimum to scan for temperature range, pretty fast. We suggest you create some kind of a sign X on the floor to help people know where to stand. And then you got to decide what you're going to do for secondary screening. So what are the solutions? FLIR has a solution for all your applications, from the typical temperature gun all the way to the high end. In the handheld or the one-to-one scanning that I mentioned before, these systems are great for rapid deployment. We have a lot of different models and that can be used as well. And it can be used for inspections when not in use. So if you have a situation where you don't want to have the camera sitting there doing nothing for a few hours because you have a morning shift and afternoon shift, your cameras can be used for other applications as well. For the fixed models, they can be accessed from anywhere in the world, their web browser. You can install software, you can just use the onboard software as well, the variety of models, and they can work with a black body. You might have heard people saying they like to use the black bodies to correct the cameras. Our cameras don't need black body. This is something I'll explain to you in the next few slides. They're accurate without the need, but if you need to have black body, they can work with black bodies as well. And lastly, for secondary screening, you can use our IR200. It's a lower cost. This is more of a forehead scanning, close up. You got to be really close to scan the temperature. It's very easy to use. For the applications, so if you buy a camera and you want to repurpose them for something else, handhelds can be used for electrical scanning, building scanning, wind, solar, all kinds of variety of applications. Before COVID and past, our industries has been a variety of applications we've been using camera. Our cameras can take images, you can create inspection reports, send them to a variety of insurance companies and clients. For the fixed cameras, in typical times, they're used for process control, looking for something is glued unglued, something is cooked uncooked. This is actually a picture of a chicken wings. Condition monitoring, if you have something that is critical that you want to make sure the temperature doesn't change and you want to send an alarm if anything changes, you can do that. And then early fire detection. The one advantage of a thermal camera is before there's any combustion, the camera will detect the temperature rise and send an alarm. So these cameras can all be repurposed for their other applications later on in the future. You're not losing your investment for one application. AI facial detection. So if you need the ability to have automatic facial detection to get it kind of a more faster ability to scan, we've created a software called FLIR Screen ESD that gives you control for privacy. You can capture photos for logging. It does automatic averaging. It does multi-language. This is a PC-based software that connects with the handheld or fixed cameras to be able to access remotely. It can be used for single operator controlled, assisted service, or self-serve option. I'll show you right now. This is kind of a screening. It can be done in the portrait or landscape mode, and these are the kind of windows that you'll see. In this case, you see the portrait mode, but I'm going to be showing the landscape mode when I do the demo. So the main difference is FLIR follows the best practices that we've been doing for a long time by reputable health authorities. We have over 10 years experience in providing solutions. We offer you handheld or fixed for your application, easy to deploy and easy to use. We are able to exist. If you have existing security VMS systems, it's easily to integrate the system, global service and training, and we offer service across Canada for any help. We have technical support in English and French. Our 510 registration, we actually have now the Health Canada authorization for our cameras, actually as of last week. And our cameras, without the use of a black body, are plus or minus 0.3 degrees C inherently. I got to repeat that. We don't need a black body to correct. If you need it, it'll actually be more accurate. But inherent by the default, they are 0.3 degrees. The questions I like to ask everybody when I do the presentation is, what is your risk tolerance? What are you someone who's okay with having someone coming in who potentially has fever, or you absolutely need to capture everyone? What does it look like? What do you want to implement? Is it a permanent fix, or you want a portable unit that could be reused for something else? And when do you want to implement this system? So this is the portion for my PowerPoint presentation. I'm going to just quickly do a demo of the software of the camera connected to FLIR Screen ESD. So I have with me a portable T840 unit. It's automatically got facial tracking. So as soon as I look at the camera, it's going to find my face. It's going to do the auto averaging. It scans. Now it's ready. So this screen is the operator screen where the person can configure it to capture images. Excuse me, the focus is a little out of focus, but I'll adjust that. And then they can register, log this data, capture temperature, as you see here in the library. So this would be the screen, the person controlling it from remotely. As long as you find the camera with a network, it'll be able to connect to it. The person being scanned, they will have this screen. It'll be, again, this is landscape mode, but you can have it in the portrait mode. And as soon as it's scanned, if the person is clear in temperature, it'll say, go ahead. You can put whatever messages you want here as well, clear, elevated temperature detected, go to the next step, so on and so forth. So you have a lot of different options that can be used for your scanning. And this is the portion for my presentation. I finished a little bit earlier, but I'm open for any questions and comments right now. I'll leave this on while we're presenting.
Thanks, Manny. So now we have some time for questions. If you have any questions, please post them in the Q&A forum, and I'll ask Manny to address them. We do have a couple of questions here, Manny. I'm going to get right into it. You did allude to this earlier, but perhaps you may want to elaborate a bit on that. So the question is, how does the system differentiate between possible infection or sickness versus someone who's simply hot or sweating, possibly returning from a gym, workout, or a run?
That's actually a very good question. So we've had a lot of great success around the world with our cameras right now. We have it installed at industrial companies, airports, you know, the offices and all that, so forth. And the main point is the cameras cannot detect if a person is sick. It just detects if the person has an elevated temperature than the average. You need to do a secondary screening. You have to determine now, does that person mean that they have is infected or non-infected? There's no way to know. It's your policy at that point to decide, are you okay with letting that, that's the question we ask for the risk tolerance. If that person is higher than the average that you see, is that okay for you to let that person in? Or do you rather send that person home, or you tell them, please stand on the side, wait for a period of time to, if you were at the gym, maybe cool off or whatever the case. That is your policy. That's why we recommend secondary screening, and you have to figure out what your policy would be for your risk.
Thank you, Manny. The second question, do you have any images showing screening people who've had fever or with fever?
I have to search it. A lot of times it's tough because the issue becomes of privacy, and clients don't want to provide that data.
Yeah.
I don't believe we might have one, but I have to check through the network, through my colleagues to see if anybody has anything.
I understand that. The next question, what is the greatest risk factor for the customer?
Risk factor for the customer. Well, if you buy the wrong system incorrectly, then your risk factor for you is getting someone who's infected going into your office. So we make sure that when you select a system, you speak to us or one of our partners, and we will help you to make sure that you choose the right system. If you choose, there are systems out there, not from FLIR, from other manufacturers claiming they can scan large clouds, 20, 30 people in a very, that's not possible. You're going to miss, and again, but that's your risk factor. If you're a grocery store where a person walking into your area is going to be only there for half an hour and people are keeping the safe distance, you say, I don't mind if one person is infected walking, or a certain number of people, because that's, I can't control everybody. That's your risk factor. If you're a company that has people working closely side by side for long hours, inside, indoors, for a long period of time, where if one person infected can infect others, you've heard about companies out there. There was a meat company in Alberta where they had one person infect 97 other employees. They had to shut down for a number of weeks, which affected their operation. That they have so now they have systems installed, as many as I think they have about 5 or 6 units installed at every entry to make sure they check everybody, because their risk factor is 0. They cannot have anybody going in with a potential high fever.
That's true. The next question, so how does a successful program look like?
Again, that's determined by you. Is it, do you want something that could be handheld? You know, I had one customer says, I don't want the cameras sitting there all day just doing nothing, because I only have a morning shift and an afternoon shift. I need the camera to be used for 2 hours and then 2 hours again in the afternoon when people are coming in. In between that time, I want to be able to, my maintenance crew, you know, inspect the motors, look at see if there's anything overheating the electrical system, mechanical system, if there's any water leaks, missing insulation, any of those type of applications that are typically being used for our cameras. So if that's what you're looking for, you would use a handheld. If you want a more permanent fixed system that does capturing images for your HR recording, you know, if you have somebody that has to fill out a form before they come in, and then you want to associate the temperature and picture capture to that person's file, then you want a fixed system recorded to the, you know, to a cloud or some kind of server. That's up to you to decide. Then we recommend fixed systems. So it really depends on what you would like to do. We cater to your needs.
Okay, thanks. So what is the time frame for implementation?
Again, so it depends on what you decide to choose. A handheld is pretty straightforward. Handheld, tripod, if you need to have a TV, it's on. Training is very straightforward. We do offer online training as well, if you like, to help you, and or we can do a virtual overview session. It's a very easy, it's a camera. There's nothing, only difference is you're looking at an infrared waveband, not a thermal waveband, excuse me, not a visual waveband, but operating it is very straightforward.
Got it. Thanks, Manny. One more question. Can the system be integrated with the card access gate entry and stop potential people at risk?
So FLIR ourselves, we don't offer that type of integration, but we have a lot of partners across Canada, actually across the world, that can assist you with that type of application. Yes, the cameras, the fixed cameras can output signals that can be connected to card access. How that works, I don't know, but our partners, we have a number of partners that are actually doing that right now, that can assist with that.
Okay, thank you. If we just going to, wait for a few seconds to see if anybody else has any more questions or clarifications. Just going to wait and see. Okay. Okay, I guess that's it then. Thank you, Manny, for joining us today and explaining FLIR's thermal imaging solutions. A recording of the democast will be available 1 week from now. We will also send a link to the recording via email to all registrants. Thanks to everyone who attended. Before you go, please take a few minutes to give us your feedback by completing our survey. It should appear in your browser after you close Zoom. Have a great afternoon and stay safe. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, everyone, for joining. Have a good day. Be safe.